So before I start, how many people in the audience are into consumer products or have the desire to manufacture consumer products? Okay, good. Because I don't want to get into some things that people are not interested in. First thing I want to talk about is how many times I've met people that have all these ideas on napkins and come to me and say, hey, you've done this, you've done that, can you help me? And one of the things that I tell every person that has come to me with that is I give them this scenario, and that is if you were to meet me at 15th Street at 5 in the morning and I told you to wear a full suit and then I took you out in the water and without you knowing, I grabbed you and held you down, how hard would you want to get up and breathe? And if you want to get up that hard and breathe, that's what you're going to need to basically make a product and keep going. Because just like anything, you're going to have 3 or 4 failures, but if you can get up and get to that 5th, you will be successful. You'll be successful for just doing it, but the fact of the matter is failure is your best friend. And you're talking to a guy that's gone through so many failures, you can't even imagine. You can't even imagine what has gone wrong or how I've been told one thing and found out that in fact it was the other thing. And what I want to share with you guys today is my ability to get up, my ability to understand failures, and how to teach you or maybe guide you in a direction of how not to make those failures, and surround yourself with people that I call have gone to the well and come back with water. And that's really important. Now, a couple of things that I've learned, and that is just because somebody's successful doesn't mean that they actually got successful because they know what they're talking about. Now, I've met many people that are one-hit wonders that have invented products, and at the end of the day, they got lucky. They had a team around them that actually did everything. They had the right money, the right time, the right place. So what I really want to focus in on is I want to basically focus in on the behind the scenes. I call it the mixed martial art way of getting involved in products. Because in mixed martial arts, you can't just be a champion now. If you're a boxer, you have to know how to wrestle, you need jiu-jitsu, you need Muay Thai, you need all forms. And if you don't have all forms, well, then your weakness is going to basically come out. So the first thing we're going to talk about is napkin to big box shelf. Now, we went into how bad do you want it? We watched that show Shark Tank. We know the term wantrepreneur. But how many people in here consider themselves what I call myself a solopreneur? A solopreneur is a one-man person that everything rides literally on them. And if they don't teach themselves all different aspects, well then guess what? They're going nowhere. And so what I've learned over the years is how to take the wantrepreneur to a solopreneur and then try to get that next level, which is the entrepreneur. And the solopreneur has enabled me to learn all different aspects of what it takes to get a product out to market. So that's kind of my own little term. I call it a solopreneur. Let's talk about some of the things that I consider to be the most upsetting. Okay, talk minus action equals shit. I can't tell you how many people I've met that all they do is talk, and I'm like, where are you at? And they've got an excuse for everything. Excuses, 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 excuses. You know, a lot of times I just basically tell them, just when you're done with the excuses, give me a call. Because at the end of the day, I'm helping you for free, and I really don't have time to hear the excuses. So a couple of the excuses are, I need capital to start my company. Yeah, that's true in some cases, in some sectors, but in some sectors I find that that's just an excuse. You don't need capital. And I'm going to explain to you how you possibly might not need capital or can get to the point of getting capital. The next thing we're going to talk about is I'm working on my design. Adrian made a great comment here. I can't tell you how many people that have the engineering background that all they want to do is keep tweaking it, tweaking it, tweaking it. You can tweak it forever, but at the end of the day, you've got to be able to pick up the phone and start making some cold calls and start making some things happen. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you tweak, it's still going to be changed when it gets to market. Next is cannot afford a prototype. I'm going to show you and explain to you ways that you can afford a prototype. And I'm also going to explain to you at the end of the day how with one prototype, I've taken 3 products and put it in the shelves of just about every Target, put it in Costco. I have a technique that I call fake it till you make it, which is what I consider to be the way you could take a prototype and do something that no one else, I think, doesn't know basically how to do. So we're going to go into that. No connections to big box retailers. I never knew a big box retailer from Adam. If everybody has LinkedIn here and everybody basically knows how to pick up the phone and have that desire, well then guess what? You're going to meet some big box retailers. You don't need someone to introduce you. If you have a good product and you basically believe in your product, you could get a big box retailer on the phone, a buyer. Then we're going to get all my friends and family love the idea. Biggest kiss of death on earth is your friends and family love the idea. Okay? I mean, it's like, I don't know how many times I've seen these shows where you've got these young kids in these beauty pageants and the parent doesn't realize that, you know, maybe the kid's not necessarily talented or beautiful, and someone needs to basically, I call Simon Cowell them and explain to them that maybe they need to take something else up. Friends and family are great, but at the end of the day, surround yourself with people that are going to tell you exactly what you don't want to hear. That's not to say that you can't prove them wrong, just like people can come back to me and say, you know what, we proved you wrong. Surround yourself with people that are going to basically tell you some things that you really don't want to hear. Next thing, can't afford tooling and mold. Big myth. I'm going to explain to you how you can do that. It's not necessarily easy, but if you can do some of the techniques or things that I'm telling you about, I think you can get a fighting chance to get a mold or a tool made without having to literally mortgage the house or figure ways that you can actually do it. Then, no time, but with capital can find time. I call it third shift. If everybody in here is not willing to work the third shift, give it up. Because I always say, keep your day job, then comes your family, then comes your third shift. If you're not on Skype at 11, 12 o'clock at night and you want to talk to me, don't bother me. Because I've been on Skype, I can't even tell you, for 11 years, Friday nights, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, Skyping different countries, people. You got to learn to work the third shift. You don't want to work the third shift. You know what, maybe this isn't the racket you want to be in. And last but not least, have a patent or need money to have a patent. Okay? I'm going to explain to you how much money I've spent on patents that have gone nowhere. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of patent potential that have gone nowhere. There's some good things with patents, but there's also some things that I think you can actually fake it, you know? You can file a provisional and you can do all kinds of techniques and stuff that you can wait until the product gets to the point where you're going to drop some money. Certain industries, completely different, but in other industries, first to market is just as important as a patent. So we're going to go into a lot of these things, okay? Procrastinators, you know, can we meet? I can't tell you how many people tell me, can we meet? I'm like, I'm not interested. Unless you're interested in taking this to the next level, I'm not interested in meeting with you. You know, I got bigger and better things to do than just hear someone tell me what they're going to do. Show me what they're going to do. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. So who is this guy that comes up here and is so brass and thinks that he knows it all? Well, I've been on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine. If this YouTube video works, I'll explain to you how I got on the cover. I called Entrepreneur magazine up. They said they'd do a story on me. I said, I want the cover. They said, the cover? Who the hell are you? I said, if you don't put me on the cover, I'm going to ride my horse into your office, full chaps, and I basically have claimed in the dot-com industry to be the craziest dot-com CEO there was. They said, if you do that, we'll arrest you. Well, I did. I trailered my horse right here from Del Mar, Carmel Valley, came right up 5 freeway to the 405 right there, went into Entrepreneur magazine, the story's right there, wrote into their thing, they made me on the cover. And you'll see the picture, okay? So I'll get into that. But I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but at the end of the day, I call it, you better pull the goalie. Because at the end of the day, sometimes we need to basically pull the goal and we need to go full force, or else guess what? You're going to go nowhere. And here in this gentleman, I could tell you, I know exactly what he's done and how many no's he's gone, and he is willing to go the distance. So if you're willing to go the distance, you're in the right industry. If not, then you know what? Sometimes you just got to basically accept the fact that this is not for you. Filed many ventures, been sued for patent infringement. Went to an IP attorney, show you the product. Impossible. There's no way they're going to get any claims. The Bernoulli effect has been around since the 1800s. They've gone through 3 rejection periods. There's no way on earth. No way on earth. What they did was they flew out to Washington, hired a real high-powered patent group, and then met with the examiner, got one claim, and that one claim, because they had all the money, literally shut me down. They sued me. I could have won. I could have objected to their patent, but at the end of the day, it would have cost me $300,000-$400,000 to basically take them out. So at the end of the day, when people tell me about patents and stuff like that, sometimes he who has the most money wins. Unfortunately, in this country, you know, when you're a small entrepreneur or solopreneur, you might not win certain battles. So you've got to pick your battles and know exactly where you're at as far as what you might infringe and not infringe. That pretty much brought me back to the dollar table at the casino. Because the way I look at it is when I invest in my own products, I try to get it to the $1,000 table, and then when I make a mistake, I'm back down to the dollar table. Lived in China for 7.5 weeks with the workers. My wife has tried to divorce me, I don't know, 10, 15 times. And this one invention, she said, if you spend $1 there or stay there and spend our money on this invention, okay, it's over with. So she sent me over there. I literally had no money. I don't know if there's engineers here. I thought the T1 trial would last a week. To make a long story short, it was going completely south. We were having issues with sync. We were having issues with everything that can go wrong could go wrong. I didn't have an option because she basically told me if I spend money, that's it. So I went to the factory owner and I said to him, can I stay here? And he was like, stay here? You don't even speak Chinese. This is dangerous. I spent 7.5 weeks in the same dorm room with 4 Chinese factory workers living exactly like they would live. And the reason why I did it was because I wasn't going to quit. Remember that story I told you about the guy that you push down and comes up? I wasn't going to quit because when you're putting your equity on the line, when I'm taking my home equity on the line and I'm rolling it into a product, the last thing I'm going to do is walk away from that factory without getting some parts working. So we can go into that as well. Last but not least, took up pro bull riding to help my sales skills. At 35, I had a bit of a success. I was thinking about retiring. A lot of friends were getting into golf. I have no horse skills. I grew up in New York part of my life. And I just decided that, you know what, I'm going to become a professional bull rider. So at 35, I decided to become a professional bull rider. And what bull riding taught me is that when I get on a bull with no skills, I have to control my mind and I have to calm down to not let fear bother me to the point where I don't think on how to counter the bull's movement. That same ability, the way you can counter, is the same ability when you get on a cold call and someone tells you they're not interested. So what I've done is I've harnessed that fear, or whatever fear you have, into basically keeping it in front of me and keeping my entrepreneurial dreams going. Because at the end of the day, that little voice or someone telling you, you know, you got to give up. You just go get a job. I mean, come on. You've been doing this for how many years now? So I took up bull riding because I thought that was probably the scariest thing I could do. Plus, I'm afraid of heights, so I wasn't going to skydive. So that was just something that I took up. And then last but not least, I had an opportunity to be on Survivor and on Shark Tank. And if I can potentially click that, I'll show you my Survivor video. I turned down Shark Tank because Shark Tank had a contract that was not necessarily in my best interest. They wanted 2.5% of my company or 5.5% royalty. And there was all kinds of nuances where if they showed the product at the wrong time, which in my eyes would have been February, March, no one's buying my product. So I needed them to basically show that product right before Christmas, and that would boost my sales. So we're going to go into a lot of things. I'm going to see, there I am, fearless entrepreneur on the cover there. So let me tell you a little bit of a story about this. Not only did they shoot it, but I didn't wear a protective vest, and I had to ride 14 times for this cameraman for Entrepreneur Magazine to get it right, because he's never shot bulls. So he was sitting there scared shitless, and he was like, and he's running, and I'm like, you've got to get this thing, man. I can't do this 14 times. I did it 14 times in a row in a business suit, okay? And I made the cover of an Entrepreneur Magazine. So when people tell me they're an entrepreneur, I say to them, really, you know, what have you done, or what are you willing to basically take it to the limit? And how do you want to take a no into a yes? And a lot of you people in here, I look at you and I say, look, everyone's got the skills, but at the end of the day, you've got to learn to know that no is your best friend, because the faster you get to a no, the quicker you're going to get to a yes. So it's really important for, I think, people to understand. There's a story, I don't know if you can read it. It's online, but it will actually tell you how I wrote in there. They were actually seriously going to call the police, but the editor thought it was funny, and needless to say, I was in... Well, no, I rode the horse in there, but then basically what I told him is that at the time I was upset with the .com companies because they were just fake, and I thought that this is in 2000, all they were doing was just basically coming up with fluff, not making anything. As a guy that invents products, I was like, how is this company that's worthless worth all this money when here we are making products? So I pretty much challenge any .com CEO to a fight or any form of toughness, because I just was literally irate. And at the end of the day, they wrote this story about this fearless entrepreneur, me. And you know, at the time I was younger and I wasn't married and kids, and now I'm mellow and, you know, calmer, and, you know, Ritalin's kicked in, and, you know, it's all good. Okay, so there's the YouTube video. I don't know if I can click it, but if you know, we can see it at another time. But it's a pretty insane story. It shows me riding a bull. It shows me riding big waves. It shows, you know, I was into extreme anything, and now I'm just a dad / husband. Okay, so let's talk about Inventor 101. Okay, I don't know if anybody knows about these terminologies, and I'm not going to get into them. But if you don't know about this stuff, I suggest you learn quick, because if not, you're going to tear through a lot of money. And you're going to hire a lot of people that are going to tell you conflicting stories. I'm going to get into stuff like, and there's some engineers here that will explain it to you, but you've got to, as a layman, understand the basic concepts of steel safe, undercut, sink, mold flow, cycle time. Okay? The number one way that manufacturing will come back to the United States is with very smart engineering and getting cycle times down so that we can start making products in the US so that we don't have issues, because that's what China is killing us on. High cycle times and things that deal with a lot of, let's just call it assembly, are heavy China favorites. But if we can out-engineer and we can use robotics, we can start making some products here in the US. And I'm all for making products in the US, but unfortunately, every buyer that I deal with, whether, well, now Walmart chains, but from Target to Bed Bath & Beyond, they couldn't care less if the product was made in the US. They flat out told me, all I care about is my 55-point margin, and at the end of the day, as long as I don't get returns, I don't care. So I've tried numerous times to make products in the USA, and I've unfortunately have not had the opportunities. PP, ABS, Chime, Repro, cavities. You guys need to literally, somehow or another, start learning about this stuff. Suggestion is get into LinkedIn, start talking to some of these engineers. Engineers are some of the most, I find them to be some of the most giving people I've ever met. They love laymen like us. Just say, look, I'm just a dumb inventor, or I'm just a marketing person, and at the end of the day, you're going to get a ton of engineers that are going to give you some amazing insight and teach you exactly some of the things that you need to do. Okay, T1 trials, program manager, surface polish. I can get into all this stuff, but it'll take us hours upon hours. What I'm trying to say to you is learn about the basics. If you don't learn about the basics, let me tell you something. You're going to rely on someone, and you're going to go through maybe one or two people that are going to give you the wrong information, and you're going to tear up a ton of money to learn it. Next thing, studio surface, Class A, designer versus engineer. Okay, this is the biggest mistake that I find people have. They've got this great idea, and then they get this design guy or gal, and they use a program called Rhino or Rhinoceros, or they use a 3D kind of surface modeling program. And it looks great. But what they don't understand is that it can't be manufactured. So they just drop $4 or $5 grand on a design that basically, when they go over to the next side, which is then imported, and sometimes it can't even be imported in Pro E or SolidWorks, it's useless. You can't even basically do anything with it. And now you're like, I just dropped $5 grand, and now the engineer comes into place. Well, let me tell you something about most engineers. They're not as creative as the design guys. So what you've got to do is you've got to find an engineer that it also has the ability to understand design, because if you don't, I'm telling you right now, you're going to tear up thousands of dollars. I've torn up thousands of dollars. I've gotten files that are not compatible with programs like SolidWorks or Pro E, and I'm telling you right now, learn this. If you learn anything, this is the one thing I'm telling you to learn, because you'll tear up money before you know it. There was something up at the very top, the Rhino. Okay, let's get into design, patent, utility patent, trademark, trade dress provision. I'm not a patent guy, but I can't tell you the amount of money on patents. I've had people telling me they can patent anything. I invented a product called the squeeze grater, and patent row right here, yeah, we can trademark that name. You can't trademark a name that's descriptive of the product. Squeeze grater cannot be trademarked. That was my first learning of the trademark lesson. I could tell you how many times they've said, we can get you this claim, we can get you that claim, but at the end of the day, what I consider is a poor man's way of getting started. Poor man's way, or poor woman's way of getting started is hey, a design patent could be just as powerful, okay? Or it can get you to the point where you can be first to market and you can use it as ways to deflect people off. Provisional versus non-provisional. Do people understand that? What a provisional versus non-provisional is? You can file, you can go to the USPTO website and you can actually file it yourself for $100 and you can give yourself a space for almost a year before you file what I consider to be the big boy patent. So I'm not a patent person, but at the end of the day, I would highly suggest you call the USPTO. They have a bunch of retired patent officers or patent. They actually look at patent. They've been people that have looked at patents and start learning all the mistakes that you can make. And then when it comes time to file a patent, I would highly suggest you have a viable product that you know can sell, because at the end of the day, you're going to be tearing up money for a product that's useless, that you might sell 200 of them, but you can say, look, I've got a patent. I would rather have money than just a patent on my wall. So in the consumer industry, I highly suggest you learn the patent game. Okay? Now we're going to get into buy down allowances, return allowances, points, advertising, slotting fees, the whole 9 yards. Okay? If no one's ever sold to a buyer, okay, you're going to walk in and you're going to literally feel like you're speaking Chinese. You have to understand how they are going to think. And you have to understand numbers. You have to understand the buy down allowance, meaning what happens if the product doesn't sell? Well, they're going to come back to you and say, guess what? We need 5% buy down allowance that's coming out of your PO. So when you put in your best price, you need to figure out the worst case scenarios of what happens if I have to give Target a 5% buy down allowance? Do I have that in my price? Because at the end of the day, if the sell-through is not to what Target wants, they will kick you off the shelf tomorrow and you're done. Target and all of these retailers are like Beverly Hills housewives. Okay? Not to be sexist, but at the end of the day, some of these retailers, okay, they don't care about anything except sell-through, margins, and basically you're hot today, but tomorrow when your product's not hot, there's someone else coming in, okay? So you got to understand all the nuances, okay? You got to understand literally what a line review is. What a line review is for example, like Costco. Costco is a great company to work for. They might have a product, let's just call it this case. And at the end of the day, they might not be looking for new vendors until next August. So next August is when the line review comes. So they're going to basically ask you to basically submit. They're going to see exactly what you're all about, and you're going to try to win an invitation to come up to Issaquah and be involved in the line review. A lot of times, you might not have to go in front of the line review. On several products that I've invented, I've bypassed the line review, and I've actually got the product right to shelf. Resets. So just because you've now got put onto the shelf, that doesn't mean that you get the next reset. If your sell-through numbers are not good, and if you are not basically helping to bring traffic to Target or basically paying for advertisement in their, let's just call it, publications that you get at home, they'll kick you out. How many of us have been to a big box retailer and seen single SKU companies? When you go to a big box retailer, you don't see just one single SKU company. You see Rubbermaid, you see OXO, you see all of these companies that have what I consider to be, okay, they got line extensions. So when you've invented that first product, the next thing is you've got to quickly come up with the next product and the next product, because they're looking for line extensions. They're looking to basically give a vendor agreement to a product that basically can grow into line extensions. And as an inventor, that's great, but sometimes it's, well, I've still got all those expenditures that I still need to pay off, and now you want me to come up with a new product. And the new product has to obviously be in the same line as your product. You can't be coming up with a kitchen item and then coming up with like a dog brush. So it's got to be some kind of continuity. So line extensions is a very important thing to learn. Factoring COGS, insurance, freight costs, etc. When you're doing your numbers, does everybody know what COGS are? Cost of goods sold? Okay. I highly suggest you either become friends with an accountant or get somebody that knows how to really jam numbers to Excel. Okay? Insurance and freight and cost. So now you think, wow, this is great, I got my freight price in place, but then all of a sudden you make a major mistake like I've made, and that is you didn't design the packaging and the master carton's optimal so that you can get the most out of a 20-foot, a 40-foot, and a 40-foot HQ. So now your product's coming over by sea, and guess what? It's not basically lining up correctly. You're not utilizing that space. And so what I always say to people is get in bed with packaging engineers and work with someone that understands when you're designing your master carton or you're designing your actual packaging that it actually works with a 20, 40, or 40-foot HQ. Because those little dollars and cents are what could make and break you when you're talking about big orders like we're talking about. Commercial invoices, continuous bond, etc. These are all technical terms. Now, I used to hire freight forwarders, and they used to do everything, but at the end of the day, I started to teach myself some of this stuff. Freight forwarders are great. You're going to have to use a freight forwarder. There's a ton of freight forwarders up in Long Beach. I highly suggest whoever you hire, go up there and take them to lunch and have them teach you the whole methodology of how the whole freight forwarding works, from a continuous bond to, less than container loads, and learn about how that works. Because the more you know, the more it's going to be beneficial for you, that when you go into a buyer, you're going to look intelligent. Because if you don't, you make a mistake, you're done. Packaging design, we talked about. UPC codes. So UPC codes, I don't know if anybody knows what UPC codes are. You know the barcodes that are at the very bottom? Well, there's a company called GS1. If anybody's creating a product, I highly recommend that they go through GS1. Because what happens is you can buy a barcode for $75, but what a barcode for $75 is it's someone else's recycled barcode. And the big box retailers want you to have your own barcode that is literally to your product. So if this was my product, I would have my own barcode. So GS1 is a very good company. There's not many. I'd highly suggest you learn about barcodes. We talked about pallet sizes. Now we're going to get into the next thing, EDI, drop ship, pick, pack, storage. So now you got this big box retailer that says, we want to start ordering from you. Well, they don't just fax you something, or they don't just say, hey, Sean, what's going on? Yeah, that's really selling really well. Can we order some more? So what you've got is what's called EDI. And EDI, to me, is archaic. It's like DOS. I don't know why it's in place, but at the end of the day, all of the retailers use it. You're going to have to communicate to that retailer via EDI. Now, you get all stressed out like I got stressed out because I started calling up and finding out that in order to get an EDI system, it's a couple of $1,000s. Well, there's companies that actually will, month to month, communicate with companies like Costco, Commerce Hub, DI Central. There's all kinds of companies out there. And what you'll do is you'll get set up. They'll set up with Costco or they'll set up with Target. And what they'll do is they'll communicate via EDI, and that's basically the language that basically your orders go through. I highly suggest you learn it, because at the end of the day, if you hire someone that you think knows it and they start making mistakes, you'll lose a PO and you'll lose all your hard work. And at the end of the day, I've had that happen. So I've taught myself EDI. It's not that difficult, but at the end of the day, it's a very important aspect of learning when you're a solopreneur that wants to basically start doing business with the big box retailers. This is a very important thing. I love the people that say, I've got a factory in China that I own. It's the biggest lie I've ever heard in the history of what I've dealt with people. The only way to own a factory as an American in China is if you're a woofie. If you do business with somebody and they say they own a factory in China and they're American, use the term woofie. And if they don't know what it is, run for the hills. You cannot own a factory in China as an American unless you set up a woofie. A woofie stands for a wholly owned foreign entity. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that we own a factory in China. There's no benefit to own a factory in China. Why would you own a factory in China? What, the real estate's going to go up? There's no reason. But at the end of the day, if you're dealing with an American that claims that he owns the factory in China, learn the term woofie. Drop it and say, what's that term, woofie? And if they don't know what it is, say, you know what, I got to go. My kid just called soccer practice or something. So trust me when I tell you. I can't tell you how many people I've met. They own factories in China. Now they're saying Vietnam. Okay, where next? Okay, drop ship only, pick, pack, storage. So here's a very important technique. When people say, well, I can't get in the retailers. Think about .com as maybe AA, single A, or triple A. You can call up a .com for Target or Costco, and it's a completely different buyer. And they'll do what's called the drop ship only product. They'll set you up as drop ship only. What that means is that they are not going to buy the product off you. You'll put the product in a third-party logistic company, or you can actually do it yourself, and then they'll start communicating to you via EDI, and then every day you'll get your orders, and then every day you'll send them out. They have no risk because at the end of the day, they're not buying anything. It's a great way to start to try to basically get to the next level, which is getting into the big box retailer. So if you can get the sell-through up on .com, then you could go to the buyer, and the buyer will look and say, wow, we sold that amount. So I look at .com as a way to get through what I call the one SKU issue, because no big box retailer wants to give a one SKU vendor, unless it's a really hot product, a vendor agreement. So the way you can get that is by basically trying to go to the .com person, go the back door, and then from there, once you get the vendor agreement, then it's easy to call up the buyer and say, hey, you know, I'm already a vendor, and then you could potentially get in. S company, C company, private placement, Kickstarter, etc. I'm not an expert, but I've gone through, I can't tell you how many attorneys that have set me up incorrectly. Okay? I highly suggest you learn about the difference between an S Corp and a C Corp. I highly suggest, if you think you're going to play funny games by saying, I'm a Vegas company and I don't have to pay state taxes, at the end of the day, let me just tell you something, they'll fine you. Okay? So you don't want to play around here. You want to do things right. If you believe in your product, hire a good attorney and go through what's right. Be on the up and up, because at the end of the day, it's just going to come back to haunt you. Okay? Next thing is the manufacturer agreements, Hong Kong company, etc. This is a very interesting scenario. Okay? I don't know if anybody here has worked with Chinese companies or has bought from Chinese companies. Raise your hand. Anybody here? Okay. Let me tell you the biggest and best secret on earth. 90% of Chinese companies have Hong Kong banks because they funnel their money out of China into Hong Kong. When you do an agreement with a Chinese company, you can sign one in mainland and you can basically guarantee it's worthless. You can go over there, you can hire whoever you want, you can sit and fight them, but at the end of the day, it's worthless. Sign an agreement with them in Hong Kong, because at the end of the day, it's still British law, and if they start to play games with you, you can sue them in Hong Kong and you could shut their bank account down. You shut their bank account down, and guess what? Now they have no way to funnel their money. You've got to understand the game, and the game is that you're going to get potentially, let's just say, I don't want to say screwed, but in a way, you're going to potentially get somebody that's going to pull a fast one on you. In Asia, screwing someone over is a sign of a smart business person. Okay? So let's get this straight. You get screwed over, that person is looked upon as a smart business person. Okay? And I don't care how many times you've gone out, you've done the tea ceremony, at the end of the day, I'm telling you right now, okay? It's going to happen. So the other thing that I want to teach you about is get agreements done in Hong Kong and make them basically put their company chop on it. Now this is the craziest thing on earth, but in China, they've got something called the company chop, and it's this archaic round symbol like our kids have with wax. And when they put their company chop on and the director of the company signs it, they're not violating agreements, because at the end of the day, that company chop is literally something that they'll very rarely go against, because if they go against it, you're going to shut them down, in Hong Kong at least. So learn about the company chop. Say, hey, okay, I want to sign an agreement, manufacturer agreement in Hong Kong, and I want you to basically sign your company chop on it, and I want your signature on the company chop. That's a way to basically say that you know that the person has signed it, has the power to basically execute on the agreement. Let's get into the Kickstarter and that role. I think Kickstarter is great, but at the end of the day, it could be your worst enemy. Because if you go on Kickstarter and you don't get funded on Kickstarter, a buyer is going to say, well, what happened? No one liked your product. You know, I'm not going to, I mean, and Kickstarter Google indexes. So at the end of the day, when you go on Kickstarter and then all of a sudden you don't hit your numbers, you better make certain that basically your Kickstarter idea is going to work, because a buyer is looking at what you're going to do in something like Kickstarter. I think Kickstarter is a great idea, but at the end of the day, what I'm saying is get your video down, get your pitch down, make sure the product's viable. I was in a meeting, I was here the first time, and a guy came up with this one product. Well, look at the demographics of a Kickstarter person. You know, the demographics of a Kickstarter is not going to buy something that's not in their right demographic. So make certain your product fits right with Kickstarter, and make certain you do your homework, because at the end of the day, it could come back to haunt you. Now we're going to get into marketing, which is in this lady's field, okay? I always believe that even if you're a one-man company, you got to understand, for example, a marketing plan, maybe do a basic SWOT analysis. You got to do some research, because if you don't, you're thinking this is the greatest product on earth, and you have no idea what competition's out there. You have no idea how to price it. You have no idea of what you're dealing with. So, you know, go in there, go into Wikipedia, learn about SWOT analysis, and even if it's just for yourself to look at, sometimes when you write something down and you look at it yourself, you start to figure ways that you can grow on it. I can't tell you how many business plans I wrote for myself that actually made me think about how I didn't think about if I can do this or that, etc. So I highly suggest you write your business. You write a business plan, a SWOT analysis, a 3-5 year roadmap strategy, even a break-even analysis, cash flow, etc. And then last but not least, manufacturing China, opportunities in Mexico, molds, etc. I don't know anybody, okay, and I could be wrong. Molds, 98% of molds or tooling that gets made is out of China. I can't tell you how many mold guys that claim they make it here in the United States, and they're actually making it in China, and they're actually sending the mold back here and claiming that they make it here. I see it every day. At the end of the day, okay, you got to make certain that if someone's going to make your tool or your mold here, okay, you want to make certain that it's made here. There's nothing wrong with finding a mold maker in China and putting your mold on the next boat over here and getting it manufactured here. But what I'm saying is do your homework. Understand and look at the mold maker and look at exactly what capabilities they have. Make them take pictures of what equipment they have and make them basically show you how they're going to make the mold in their facility. Because 9 out of 10 times they're going to say they're going to do it and they're going to outsource it to China. I see it. I can't even tell you how many times I see it. And how many people come to me and say, I'm making the mold here. Impossible. It's impossible for the prices that they're saying. You can't. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Sign NDA workflow. I'm going to get out of this. I've talked about it. This is fake it till you make it. Now let me just show you this. These are all 3D rendered products. Your rendering guy is your best friend. Your rendering guy can make or break you, okay? This product here was never made, but we sold it to, I don't know if you guys know Realtree, you know, the Realtree company. This right here is a product that was never made, and now we're basically starting to get orders, I can't, you know, in the hundreds of thousands. It's a face brush that basically we invented, well, I invented it, okay? That's rendered. That's rendered. That's not real. It's never been made. When I show these buyers this and they say, oh, yeah, I want it, I've never made it. So if they say I don't like it, well, then I know, well, maybe they don't like it. So rendering, these guys and gals are your best friend. Okay, this is the product that I invented, the holder. This is another product that I invented. This actual product is for Kevin Harrington's son, because Kevin Harrington's son, Brian Harrington, came to me and said that you seem to know how to get things done. And basically, this is a product that we rendered, and now he's launching it. That's the squeeze grater. There you go. Can't get a trademark on that. That's a product that I invented. That's the product I got sued on, using the Venturi effect. Patent attorney told me Bernoulli basically started this back in the 1800s. It's impossible for it to basically be patented. Well, guess what? It was patented, and I got sued. Cost me a lot of money. Packaging importance. Know how to basically orientate your package. Know about basically the fact that you don't know where it's going to go. Is it going to be a clamshell? Where is it going to be? It's very important that you spend a lot of time going into the retailers and seeing exactly how you're going to have to package your product. Getting to the end, don't quit. Run for the hills, third shift, we got it, motivation. Well, one-hit wonders we talked about. And then this is an important slide I want you to see. And that is on an Eagle album, there's 8 songs. Well, guess what? Only 2 are hits. So at the end of the day, as an inventor, don't be afraid that you have 5 things you're working on or you're thinking about, because at the end of the day, drill down to one, and that's the one, go for it. Don't think that basically you're one hit wonder at times. You got to keep going at it if it's not working. Come up with something else. Skin in the game. I only do business with people that have skin in the game. If someone comes to me and says, I want to do this, I'm like, well, you have no skin in the game. If you have skin in the game, I'm interested. I always look for people that want to put some skin in the game, where there's some win-win opportunities on both sides, but they also have stuff to lose. So that's a term that I always use when I'm talking to people, and that is what skin in the game are you going to do? Because at the end of the day, I pay you $50,000, and guess what? It doesn't work. You still get your 50 grand. What are you going to do? Why don't you discount it when it works? I'll tell you what, instead of giving you the 30, I'll give you 60, because you're so sure it's going to work. You got skin in the game. Let's do this deal. Find people that are so sure and believe in you, they're going to put skin in the game. These are some important things to go with. Import genius. I can't tell you how many times I needed to manufacture a product, couldn't figure out how to manufacture it. Subscribe to Import Genius. What Import Genius does is it tells me who and what factory made certain products. So when I look at a factory and I say, wow, I want to know how this is made because this is a manufacturing technique I need, I'll go into Import Genius, I'll find out the factory, and that vets out telling me that the factory's right. LegalZoom, Pocket Lawyers, those are some good sites for some quick stuff. USPTO, Elance. Elance is a site I use all the time. You get some amazing talent on Elance. Get to the point, blah, blah, blah. I use this slide because at the end of the day, if I want to work out, right, and get in shape, I'm looking for a guy that went from there to there. Okay, so pick people that you can see have actually gone through it and made stuff happen. Background checks, etc. You know, if I'm in business with a partner, I want to run a background check on him. I don't want to be in bed with somebody that I don't know, because at the end of the day, that's stuff. Anybody wants to email me, I'll give them some free advice. That's my phone number, and at the end of the day, I try to make it as informative as possible. What I'm saying is not necessarily 100% right, but at the end of the day, if certain things stick and it helps you and saves you money, great. Thanks.